enough to knock me out, but I'm still holding the throne. You never know till it's over. So pretty it hurts. Just beware of the thorns.
Hello, YouTube. Excuse me. Today I want to talk about the differences between the old school convicts and the young blood convicts, the new guys that are in prison nowadays, young people. So if you're new, you like prison content, hit that subscribe, like, share, comment. I like hearing from you guys, your feedback on what you have to say. And sometimes you guys got interesting stories of yourselves that I like hearing. Anyway, let's get into this. When I first got to the walls, of course, I guess, the walls was Missouri State Penitentiary is a different type of prison. I mean, it was different than all the others going on. And I got established there. I started hanging around with a bunch of old heads. And they schooled me on how to do time. And they always had these, they'd always tell me, do this or don't do that. One of the things they told me was, well, I heard it from everybody actually, is that the walls have ears. That means don't be talking about your business or anything you don't want to be heard, because you never know who's going to hear it and use it, or if a guard's going to hear something you're saying illegally. Another one was do the time, don't let time do you. So many people just let the time they're doing consume them, and that's all they think about 24/7 is the outside. I thought about the outside too, but it's not supposed to be an all day, everyday thing, And there's, you mind your own business. One of the things I've noticed right before I was getting out is when I was back there and I saw a fight or something, I just kept walking. Didn't even really look that way. Nowadays, a fight happens and everybody runs and crowds around. It draws attention from the cops. A lot of times they're going to get caught anyway, but you don't need to be drawing that attention to them. And I've seen fights in cells and everybody's crowded at the cell door these days, Somebody, he's a subscriber and he talks to me all the time, so you guys probably know who he is. He told me something I hadn't heard in years. In fact, I'd almost forgotten it. He said 80% of the people don't care about your problems. 20% are glad you have problems. And there's a margin of error for the one who might actually care. And I hadn't heard that in years, but that's so true. And it's not only true in prison, it's true out here too. And the amazing thing about these old heads is they're still giving me advice to this day. And I love it. And respect to all of them. And if you guys, God forbid, go to prison, you get a chance to talk to one of these old heads. A lot of them ain't around, like the ones I knew, were around when I first got there. A lot of them ain't around no more. But if you get a chance to talk to one of these old heads and just listen to him, I suggest you do it. He's not going to steer you wrong. He's going to give you advice. He's going to tell you stories. And the stories are always fascinating to me. But there's a difference between then and now. yeah, back then there was a lot of violence, a lot of brutality, fightings and stabbings, beatings by the guards. But there was an order to the madness back then. There's certain lines that you didn't cross. Nowadays, people are stabbing one another over phones. I mean, phones. Think about that. I don't ever remember that happening when I was first came to prison. But now it is, especially in South Central Correctional Center, and 5 and 6 House is pretty violent, as you heard Rob say the other day on the audio. Charleston is pretty violent. These young guys nowadays coming in, the convicts, they just don't. There's no line they really won't cross. You know, if they're trying to, if they're stabbing each other over phones and other things, over petty stuff, they'll do it for anything. But back, like I said, back then there was like an order to. It's hard to explain, but there was an order to the madness. And I want to explain convicts and inmates. To the DOC, there's no difference. In fact, nowadays, they on the IDs and stuff, they say offender, and they call you offenders. But so there's no difference with the prison, the guards, and staff calling you, whether they're called convicts, inmates, whatever, offenders. But there's a difference to me and a lot of other people between a convict and an inmate. So you'll hear me a lot of times say prisoner instead of convict or inmate. And the reason why is when I'm talking about people in prison as a group, well, not everybody in there is a convict. At least not these days. And I don't call them inmates because definitely not everybody in there is an inmate. Inmate, and the convicts will know what I'm talking about. They're a person that's likely to tell. They're always around the cops, always up in their face. And Jeffers, we call them. Why you jeff them with the police? Some of them have messed up cases. Anybody who has a messed up case is not a convict. So that's a difference. A convict has a certain amount of rules, certain rules that I guess you would call code that he goes by. And I've heard some people say that, well, that code's not in place anymore. Well, they're kind of right. That's kind of been thrown out the window, but there's still, even with these young bloods in here, in the prison system, they're still, if they're not snitching, they don't got a messed up case, they're not always in on the cop's face, to me they're a convict. Doesn't matter if they're, they don't follow that old code anymore, It's messed up, but to me they're still convicts. But these guys, especially guys from the rural communities, you go to prison nowadays, and which you might, I hope to God you don't, but you might, and let's say you and somebody talked you into something. You're generally a good person, but you got talked into doing something, and you get caught. Most likely he's going to try to tell on you, and they're going to try to get you to tell on him. Either way, telling's not going to get you out of prison. It may get you less time, and maybe once in a great while you'll get out going to prison, but most time you're still going to prison. And if they're stabbing each other over phones, what do you think they're going to do when they found out that you or your partner ratted. You know, it's I'm just trying to keep you guys, if you do go to prison, from having to deal with that. You know, I mean, it's crazy in there these days. But another thing you didn't do back then, of course, you really can't do it nowadays because they got solid doors and solid front. But you didn't reach your hand in the cell, try to get something. You know, you had to be careful when they opened the doors because they could close it on you. I was talking about that the other day to somebody, but guy passing me a bag of top, getting the door closed on him, and I mean, it was bruised up for a little bit, but you don't. But when you're walking down the walk, you don't look into cells. You know, so nowadays they got the solid front, so you really can't just look in the cell. They got the little window, but you don't go up at somebody's window and look in. You knock, and when they say something, if they say it's okay, then you look in, or you say something to them. It's just that you don't know what they're doing in there. You know, they could be doing something illegal or against the rules in one way or another. You know, but you guys, and I'm talking mostly to those who weren't raised in violent neighborhoods and grew up with violence. You guys around here in these small communities, you go to prison, you're not ready for it. I know you're not. There may be, out of 100 of you, there may be one or two of you. You know, not all of you are soft. But it's a mentality thing. You gotta have your mind right when you go to prison. You gotta have a strong mind. You gotta have it set right. You know, I've seen killers come in and just buckle. You know, they just let people run over them. So, but yeah, you mind your own business. Back then, that was, when I first came in, that was a big thing too. You, I mean, I remember one time walking down the walk, going to breakfast, and I had to step over a body. I think the guy was actually still alive, but he was laying on the walk, and I had to step over him. Almost slipped and fell because I stepped in blood. But I kept on going. Didn't concern me. If it had been a partner of mine or something, yeah, that would have concerned me. But if I'd stayed, you know, I could have been next. That's how you get yourself killed. In that tunnel, it's actually a hallway. Everybody calls it a tunnel, but it goes from one end to the other of the prison. And they had these blind spots. You know, you had these corners. I was always told by the old heads, take that corner wide, because there could be somebody on the other side with a knife, either for you or for somebody else. But he's so worked up that even if he ain't trying to get you and he's waiting on somebody else, when you come around that corner, he might just automatically stab you. You know, and not mean to. You know, you was there. You startled him. So you always took the corners wide. And I heard that later that they got cameras in there, but I don't really see how that could have been much help. They had these like rounded mirrors, and that was supposed to help, but it didn't. Hell, I almost got my head taken off down there. If the guy had waited until I got on down the walk, you know, the tunnel, like around the corner, he might have beat me to death. But the way he done it is he was waiting on me, and he had every right to be mad. I've talked about this before. It's over the Brazilian nut thing. I didn't call him Brazilian nuts, and he was mad. He had every right to be, but he was waiting on me, and it just so happened it took place like 15, 20 feet from the guards, two guards. And he swung, and I ducked, and he connected with the next one, and I mean, I was out. But I'm not gonna lie. I ain't gonna. I had that. I don't blame him for being mad. I'm just glad that he did it there. And the guards ran down there and stopped him. Jumped him. But guys told me later, said it sounded like a gun going off when the dude hit me. But anyway, that's kind of the difference. It's a little bit more crazier nowadays. And you young people, man, just please make the right choices. I don't want to see anybody going to prison. It doesn't matter what neighborhood you're in. I don't want to see people from the city going to prison. I don't want to see people from the country going to prison. You got your whole life ahead of you. Your whole life. Don't mess up your whole life over one wrong decision. Okay? And I thank you for watching. And see you next time.